this has got to be over 30 years old, right? And I know this made me laugh because when I first saw this, I was struggling, right? It could be that the purpose of your life is only to serve as a warning to others. And for some people, I put that up because I found it humorous. And again, for me, I remember wondering, maybe I'm that person when I first saw this. Some of you have accepted that this business is just the way it is. I've heard that, Mike. It's just the way it is, Mike. You just, I just don't know people that have, good recruiters that, that ultimately don't compete with them. Or I'm not good enough at this, fill in the blank. I'm not good enough at marketing. I'm not good enough at leading. I'm not good enough at getting good clients. This was my line. I'm not a good manager. Because everyone I hired up to that point, while I said that was, I had a couple mediocre successes in the mid 90s, recruiters that worked for me, but I didn't have anyone that, really, hit the cover off the ball or even was above average. Right. And I thought it was my management ability or here is, people here is like, I can't find good recruiters. When I look back, if I'm real, I've said this before as kind of a confession, I look back to some of the people I hired between, 1990 and 1994, knowing what I know now, putting them into the right system would have been phenomenal recruiters because they worked really hard. I didn't give them the right direction. I didn't put them in the right system. And I'm going to show you at the end of the call, there's no dishonor in failure. There's only dishonor in not learning from that, right? So what happens is, I remember, in those moments when I wanted to kind of quit, there was a lot of times I just said, you know what? I'm just going to be a solo operator. I'm figuring out how to get clients. I'm figuring out how to get retainers. I'll just bill $350 a year. I'll make a really good living. Again, no judgment and no dishonor in that because, a $200,000-$300,000 recruiter still in the top 5 or 10% of income earners in the US. There's no shame there whatsoever. But I'm like, I didn't invest in a business. I didn't come this far to only come this far. I wanted my vision when I opened my firm in 1989 was to have a business that produced revenue in my absence, that was a company that generated revenue, whether I was there or not. And again, that became a real blurry vision, parts of the 90s, but I never gave up on it. And again, a lot of getting ready for today was reflecting on the hundreds or thousands, a couple thousands of chats I've had with owners, clients and non-clients since I started coaching, is they've abandoned their dream of building something substantial because failed recruiters and the failed process has just kicked them in the teeth and they're giving up. So when they get on the phone with me, they're almost exasperated. I'm almost like a little bit of an oasis where they're going to even talk to me. They're going to have to go back into the desert, right? They just say, Mike, I'm 50 years old, 55 years old, 60 years old, 45 years old. I got another 5-10 good years left to me, and I've got to start saving some money because I'm not in a position to leave this business. So what they don't realize, what I'm hearing is I'm planning for death, or at least death in this business, right? Versus, this is a line from Dan Sullivan that, kind of really lit me up a number of years ago. He talked about this and kind of asked us what had to be true. Your future is always bigger than your past. So my future is always bigger than my past. And just saying that, I was like, I had some decent successes and I'm like, if that were true, I just got instantly excited. What do I have to do to make my future always bigger than my past? Write that down. Write this down. Your future is always bigger than your past. That's the key, one of the keys, I should say, to living a long, fulfilling, challenging life. And to do that, you're going to have to sacrifice some safety to thrive. So I don't talk a lot about this in a lot of my other trainings. To scale, you must sacrifice some safety to thrive. Sacrificing some safety doesn't mean you're sacrificing your livelihood. It just means, and usually it's a perception around safety, because if you screw up, it's never going to be, in the ways we're going to talk about, it's never going to put you out of business. So to start to change your mindset on how do you think about your business, I want you to lighten the load of your past. I've noticed many recruiting firm owners, regardless of their talents or achievements, have very complicated past to which they tied a lot of emotions. To shift the way we view their past, and again, I was taught this by Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, I asked you to look at everything you've done as a recruiting firm owner up to this present moment, all the opportunities, all the failures, breakthroughs, breakdowns, big jumps, setbacks. Look at that as game one in your career. And I invite you to all to use this challenge to think about your future as always bigger and better than your past, because this week I'm going to give you the ideas to make that happen. One of the reasons there's so much mental suffering as an owner is they reflect on their failures as reasons why it won't and doesn't work. I tried hiring and it didn't work. I tried hiring and it took too much time. They've decided, again, notice that word, they've decided that scaling, hiring doesn't work and are looking to save money, enough money to exit this business, yet the business as they've built it now is almost worthless. So what I want you to look at is, if we talk about that under that context, I want you to look at game one as research and development. For me, this was a game changer. Everything up to that moment where Dan taught us this, he just said, everything up to this moment is as R&D for your bigger and better future. So the impact on the mindset is that suddenly your entire past becomes a learning phase. It was a time spent experimenting with the best ways to move forward, a time of trial and error based on what you knew at that point in time. Viewing everything in your past as game one is a way to simplify your entire history. There is no reason to look back and hold onto past regrets because everything is simply a learning experience. It was time spent gaining higher capabilities and creating better teamwork around you. You can now shed the burden of those past experiences and take with you only the learning you received from them. By making your past lightweight in this way, looking back at the past only for the lessons, you give yourself permission to focus on looking forward and to think in terms of building a real recruiting business. Game two then in this scenario, game two then is everything moving forward, right? So what do you want to bring from that learning from game one to game two? So in the lower arrow, game one, and in the circle, you write the number of years you've been recruiting, right? And really you can even draw a dotted line between the two arrows, because if you really adopt this, and I hope many of you will, it's kind of a new lease on a beginning to a bigger and better future. And so when you no longer have to spend time on your past or attach any emotions to it, you can just say that was an R&D function, that was a learning experience. You gain back enormous amounts of energy. This is where breakthroughs happen, because entrepreneurs and recruiting firm owners can focus all their emotions and best abilities on creating a greater future. By shifting your mindset to view your world as divided into game one and game two, everything becomes easier and speeds up, giving you bigger and better results. Game two is always freed up from the past because it's entirely about the experiences that lie ahead of you, which for a growing recruiting firm owner is the way it should be. So from your R&D in game one, what do you choose to bring forward with you in game two? This is going to be your homework, right? I want you to write in the arrow or write under game two, what are the things you've learned and developed during game one that work for you now, that you want to amplify, you want to multiply? Could be like, you finally, you started selling retainers in the last few years. You figured out how to get money up front. You figured out how to raise your fees. You figured out how to get exclusive with clients where you didn't have to go through HR. Or you've kind of started to dial in some things on hiring recruiters. For me, when I look at this exercise, and I looked at kind of where I was in game one and game two in my recruiting firm, and I didn't have this exercise, but I kind of did this exercise. I just remember reflecting on what do I really love in this business? So for me, and what I became good at during game one was I got really good at closing deals. I got really good at developing great marketing and recruiting processes, but I got tired of doing the marketing and recruiting myself. and I didn't want to do it anymore. And I stopped, and I still did over 2 million on my desk, right? I brought that capability from my R&D during my first 10 years forward into game 2, and I systematized what my knowledge was. And then that's what I taught the people I hired. And I trained and delegated the system once I defined that system to others, which allowed me, because I had a lot of time developing, I enjoyed developing my team. So for me, I brought in all the R&D of all the terrible management I had in the early to mid 90s. And then how I transformed as a leader. And one of the ways we're going to talk about this to really sharpen your leadership is knowing your business metrics, because that's the easiest way to coach your team members. Again, we'll cover that on Thursday. And what I wanted to take from game 1 to game 2, because I started taking time off in game 1 without checking into the office, right? And I wanted to bring that forward, which was really my ability to delegate systems. So what had to be true for me to do just those things I loved while ensuring everything else got done well? That's the construct of this week. We're going to challenge you to finally step into what you're capable of by giving you the right systems to do it. So again, for your homework, what I want you to do is simply fill this in, right? So you write game 1, and you write that moment, just the number of years recruiting. That's the only thing under game 1. In game 2, you're either in the arrow or to the right or the left of the arrow. What are the things you learned during that R&D phase that you like about your abilities, your capabilities, that you want to bring forward into game 2?